Talking about customer segmentation and customer profiling, I think this has always been a challenge for retailers. How can we segment more precisely? How can we get deeper in the customer's mind? I think this has always been a challenge for retailers, especially for omnichannel retailers. And I think it's getting more and more complex. And I think, as the title of this presentation says, statistics are definitely not enough anymore. With the new technologies coming in, that opens a whole range of new opportunities for us as retailers, but on the other hand, customer behavior has become more and more complex. So that poses another challenges for us on the other side, on the other end. And how can we master it? How can we get deeper in the customer's mind? That is something that I would like to share with you today. Speaking about technology, I always compare it with a very tragic event, 2004, with a tsunami in Thailand. At that time, nobody really knew what a tsunami was, and the people at the beaches, they saw the receding water, so they saw the first signs of something different, of something happening, and that's the same with digitalization. Today, we see signs, but what does it really mean? We do not really know what's going to happen. We know about artificial intelligence. Everybody has heard about it, I think. We know about machine learning and all those things. But how does that affect our life, and how does that affect our business? I think this is still a big question mark. But again, coming back to that example, in 2004, people saw the receding water and walking in and looking. Some of them got it a bit early and started to run. Some of them were standing there and still trying to figure out what it really is. I mean, it looks interesting, but what really is it? And then there were still some, like this lady, this poor lady on that picture. Even though guys were running already, she was still going in, still trying to find out and not really realizing what's happening and what's going on. And I think she put herself in a really dangerous situation. So my first advice is, when you talk about digitalization, it's coming towards everyone, you better run. A little bit from my side, as I said, I'm Daniel Infanger. I'm working for Conrad Electronic, and I'm really surprised that I'm invited to this conference, as I just heard from Ian that it's the UK that is the forefront of development. I'm not from the UK, and my company is not from the UK. So I'm a little bit surprised, but still, thank you very much for the invitation. As I said, my name is Daniel. I'm Vice President B2C for Conrad Electronic International. We are an electronics retailer based in Germany. And when I mean Germany, I mean deep Germany. Our headquarters is somewhere in the Bavarian forest, but it's literally in the Bavarian forest. And sometimes I believe like we behave as coming from the deep Bavarian forest. Still, we exist for 95 years. I mean, that is quite an achievement. But at that time, when we were founded in 1923, business was a little bit different. I mean, our founder was driving through, cities and villages and delivering goods, delivering electronics, picking up old electronics, repairing them, and then sending them back. He evolved a little bit. He bought a bigger car, a bigger wagon, could deliver more, could deliver a bit faster, or collect stuff a little faster. But at that time, there was nothing about the complex customer journey, or we did not talk about attribution and segmentation at that time. But that has changed a little bit, I think. I think that's changed slightly. And again, it brings new opportunities for us, but definitely new challenges. We're present in 17 countries over Europe. We are in 5 countries. We consider as a multi-channel or an omni-channel retailer, as we have stores. Anyway, strongest market is our home market is Germany. There we do the biggest volume, and also we have the highest number of stores. Even though 31 stores seem very few for most of you, we do a quite big share of our turnover in those stores. And then we have a quite good presence in Austria and Switzerland as well. A small shop in Hungary, a small shop in France. The rest is online only. A few key figures: we're turning over 1.3 billion, 1.3 billion. But it's also nothing special. I think there are colleagues around here that are doing a little bit more. But anyway, 1.3 million, 31% we're doing in stores, 46% we're doing online, and there's still about 20-25% that we're doing through other channels, which is online OCI catalogs, e-business, e-procurement, and this contains also mobile channels as well. half B2B, half B2C, so we know a little bit of everything, a little bit of a B2B world, a little bit of the B2C world. We employ 5,000 people, we ship 10 million parcels per year, and we have 1 million products in our assortment. So that's a little bit of where I'm coming from, and let's have a look into the topic of this keynote about segmentation and customer profiling. We've developed a few omnichannel services over the last 25 years. I mean, call them innovative or not, I think is a must-have. To express delivery, we deliver within 2 hours to customers in our big cities. I mean, nobody knows about it, but yes, we can do it at least. We can do scheduled delivery, reserve and collect, and all those things that most of you also might be looking into. Our strategy consists of three main pillars. As I said, we are split between B2B and B2C. We have 2 different business units, and we want to grow in B2B. We want to stabilize our business through slight growth in B2C, but maintain profitability. But that can only be supported by automation, digitization, making things easier, making things more precise, and being faster, and being more, let's say, vigilant in adapting to the new customer behavior or the more complex customer journeys. Also, again, as Ian said in his opening comments, if anyone's here whose margin has developed positively, please raise your hands. I'd like to join your conversation. We are facing the same challenges. I mean, margins in the electronics business are going down. Things are getting cheaper. More and more stuff from China is coming in. The big octopus, Amazon, is also affecting us a little bit. Our new customer rate is going slightly down. The loyalty is going slightly down. I mean, we still have a very loyal customer base, but we see that. I mean, it is a sign that something that is changing, customer loyalty. Luckily, other KPIs went up. The average order value, for example, helped us a lot because it went up. But what is really, let's say, a challenge for us is the marketing ratio. So the marketing spend versus turnover is going up. And that is a very alarming sign if this development continues for a couple of years. And that is certainly something we'll have to address. How do you address that? By being more precise, by segmenting your customers better, by better understanding their needs, by being at the right time, at the right place, for the right customer. That's how you get your financials in order or your marketing spend in order. How did we do that? And this is where the complex part starts. So we thought, okay, we become a customer-centric company. Wow, what a surprise. Who does not want to be a customer-centric company? That is really nothing new. But we thought, how can we become a customer-centric company? First thing was, we thought, okay, let's have a look in our database. Who are the customers that are already buying at us? Who are they? What are they doing? What do they want? How do they behave? What are they buying? What are their interests? So we looked into our database and asked our CI department, corporate intelligence department, to come back to us with a cluster analysis. And as I said, this is really, really complicated. Because what we did is we took 18 different variables. May that be social variables, may that be shop behavior, may they be demographic data, 18 different variables. And when I was in school, I was struggling with 2 variables already. So we put into this analysis 18 different variables and then ran a cluster analysis. And the outcome of this cluster analysis was we divided our customer base, our active customer base, into 8 categories, into 8 sections, or we call them personas. You see the description of these personas behind me. And we found out there's particular one category of customers, one group that is particularly profitable for us. They are the largest group, and they have the highest buying frequency, and they buy for the highest order value. So these are the most profitable customers for us. And then also a second one was the makers. We call them makers. So those were the 2 most profitable customer groups in our customer base, and we call them sweet spots, and the rest is we call Smarties. I mean, we're still working with them, but we were focusing on these two segments, the professional cross-buyer and the maker. But all these data that we had was not enough for us. So we said, okay, we know what they are buying, we know where they are buying, we know which channels they are using, we know what we think is important for us. That's a big difference, because we found out a little later there's a big difference between the actual buying behavior and what they are interested in or what they are searching. So was a big mismatch, but I'll come back to that later. So how did we proceed from that? We had these core segmentation, our sweet spots. We knew that they were profitable, and we said, okay, let's focus on those. But as a second step, we wanted to get a little bit deeper into their mind, and we went back to the old way, to do interviews, to ask them, what are your needs? Yeah? Like we did focus groups, interviews, affinity groups, and really talk to those customers. And that was particularly funny, because we invited a group of customers, I think it was about 100 from each group, to these interviews. And I mean, they kind of look the same. They behave the same way. After the first 3 or 4 came in, we could already tell, yeah, that's a professional cross-buyer. Yeah, that's a maker. That's another cross-buyer. I mean, by them coming in to the room, we could already tell what he's going to buy and what kind of person he is. And being an omnichannel retailer and strong in our store presence, we thought we know our customers very well because they come to us. We can look at them. But in fact, it turned out to be completely different. We did not really know what really drives them. So during this interview and this research, we refined these groups already. So we found out that they are in different stages of their life cycle. For example, the professional cross-buy, we divided into 3 sub-segments and gave them names. So the Lucas was the youngest. He's more interested in gaming, in mobile lifestyle and these sort of things. And he's like in most likely or very often in technical schools. He's in education and interested in technology and electronics, because he needs it at school or because he just likes the new lifestyle. And then an older one, we called him Thomas, a typical Thomas, 35 years old, a technical background as well, an engineer, good income, buys soldering, electronic connectors, and these sort of things, is interested in smart homes because Thomas, good income, 35 years old, mostly has a home and home security systems and all these things. And a third section, the retired old technician that is still interested in electronics and buying something. So we went through step by step and trying to get more and more information from our customers and got deeper in their mind. And through these interviews, we really filtered out the topics they are interested in, so the fields they are interested in. And that was a bit surprising to us, even with the high amount of data, the big amount of data that we had before and that we looked into. We could actually talk to the customers, get personal feedback about what they thought about us and what we are offering to them, what they like, what they dislike. Based on those interviews and the research, we'll define a typical customer journey. Don't look too close, you might not be able to read it, but for every persona, and even for the sub-personas, we defined a typical customer journey. How do they start their journey? Where are they? What channels are they using? What are they doing in which stage of the life cycle? I mean, no matter how you define or how you divide your life cycle, it's always the same stages, that someone has a trigger, is looking for something, and then is buying something, is trying it, is returning it, is keeping it, is sharing it, and the whole loop starts again. No matter which concept you're using, each concept is right. We split it up to all our personas and defined a possible or an ideal customer journey for these personas. So we had quite a good overview. We thought about the touch points. In which stage is this persona using which touch point, and which message should we display to him at that point through that channel? So as you see, to build this for every persona and even for every sub-persona is quite hard work and needs a lot of knowledge and insight, because it's different for every customer. Even for the Profi cross buyer, it is different for every sub-segment. Okay, based on that, we thought, okay, structure follows strategy. Our strategy is to focus on these core customers. We knew a little bit about these segments already, but how do you adjust the organization? And we thought, okay, customer centricity, very simple. Put the organization or organize the organization in a way that it supports the customer needs and it supports the customer journey. So we divided our two business units, the B2B and the B2C business unit, in teams that are dedicated to develop a value proposition or an offer for this particular group of customers. So it was also a very big change for us because, as I said, 95 years old, German forest, very hierarchical, and suddenly we're working in a matrix. Because these teams, they always had a customer group manager, a marketing specialist, a product strategist, and a business intelligence specialist. So, and they worked in cross-functional teams, so we remodeled the whole thing so that they were able to work in cross-functional teams, and that was a big change for the organization. And I guess that's also nothing new, that organizational change is a very hard thing. Change does not happen via email or via phone call. You need to repeat things again and again, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 times, and get people on board so that they really have the right mindset to support the customer and not the business unit anymore. Here we go. So talking about organizational change, it's not only the structure and it's not only the functions of people and the way they're working and the way they're thinking, it's also other things that we need to adjust. So before putting the whole thing in place, we categorized the changes that we had to make into 5 categories. So on the one hand is tools. That's an easy part. Select tools. I think out there's a bunch of partners that offer amazing tools, but also the internal capabilities. We found out that in our research, in our database department, in our CI, we did not have the people that we needed in order to perform the tasks that we give them or what we want them in a proper way. So we had to build up a new department. We had to recruit new people, and that was difficult for us. Again, Bavarian Forest. So, but it's definitely worth to invest a lot of money into a corporate intelligence department, and we did that. So there are some employees in these departments that earn a lot more than their bosses. But I think that's the way you'll have to go if you want outstanding knowledge and good talent in your company. As I said, the data and asset management, we had to change completely because of our international setup. We had different shop system, not connected databases, different shop platforms, and all those things. So we had to harmonize all the data and bring it all together in one database. And that took us, I think, 3 years to get all the data centrally available and being able to work with comparable data that we can then use across the entire group. So that was a big part. And of course, the development of sub-strategies or value propositions for these core customer groups. Talking about or starting with tools, because we're really still on a very high level. We talk about the number of customer segments. So 25 now with all these sub-segments was 25 segments, and that is far away from one-to-one marketing or from personal communication. So starting with tools, as I said, harmonizing a shop platform, harmonizing the database is a foundation, but you will still need other tools to deliver your message to customers. And what we did is we divided into 2 parts, which we call near-time communication and real-time communication. Then we put systems or several, let's say, servers and several databases and parts together. Let me start with the real-time, for example. We called it OASE. It's called, I have to read myself, Omnichannel Analytical Server. Don't know who came up with that name. I think it was a data scientist. But the OASE for us, it's a system of servers that provides web services to the front end. It's based on a SaaS solution. It contains all the business intelligence, all the algorithms, all the logics, all the machine learning capabilities, and artificial intelligence. So OASE collects data in real time from a user, wherever he is, where we can collect the data, processes the data, and then gives back a message. I'll come back to that later, how that looks like. And then on the other hand, we have near-time communication. We build up a system that we call Omnibus, also a strange name, that handles our campaign management. Also come back to that a little later. And a third thing, which turned out to be, let's say, pretty surprisingly important, was the digital asset management. As I said, we are on the way to become a more a digital and agile company, and we had digital assets in 22 locations, meaning images, videos, content on 22 different locations. And as a group of company, one country had a different set of assets than the other, and we saw images on one web shop and thought, why do I not have it on my web shop? Where do I find the picture? It's not in the database, it's somewhere else. And we found out that that person had it on his personal USB stick. So that was a little bit of a problem. And having assets on 22 different locations makes working particularly difficult also beyond the availability. I mean, think of responsive designs, and think of dynamic pricing, and think of translation and different languages. So this digital asset management system, it's a clip lister solution, helped us a lot in managing our assets. Coming back to the Oase, we started with 4 functions. So you can't have everything at once. So we started with 4 functions or applications. Number 1 was creditworthiness. So we looked at the checkout, at the behavior of a customer in the checkout, and the data that we had behind, like social demographic data, likeliness to pay. So that was tested. A lot was tested, and in fact, we then replaced our credit worthiness test with the Oase system, and we gained an uplift of 800,000 euros in CM1, because we are measuring mostly, in CM1. So 800,000 uplift in contribution margin per year was quite okay. So we thought, good, worked. The next one would be a conversion prediction. So here we analyze shop behavior. Again, if the machine finds out certain behaviors on the shop, what is the likeliness to convert, or what is the likeliness to exit? And based on that behavior and based on that score, the customer gets certain messages, certain content or incentives, or things like that. So that also worked, and that brought us 2 million in contribution margin in 1 year. And I think this is also a good story to tell. And then we put a few more functions live, which is a persona identification. As I said, these core segments is if someone is, according to his behavior on the shop, identified as a professional cross-buyer, for example, and we know what cross-buyers buy, we get him a discount on a product that he might be wanting, or he might be looking for, and so on. So we have 4 live, working on the 5th one. All of them so far worked pretty well. So if you add up these numbers, I would say that is a good outcome for a project for 1 year. And of course, it will be more. As I said, the Omnibus is our campaign management system. At the moment, when we talk about campaigns or optimized campaigns managed by Omnibus, we talk about four touch points at the moment, which is the mobile shop, the web shop, email marketing, the app, and catalogs and continuous mailings. That's because we are coming from the catalog business, and that is still in our DNA. We're sending out a lot of catalogs, still decreasing though, but it's still, let's say, profitable media for us with a reduced circulation, of course. So campaign management, we talk about these 6 channels. And coming back to what I said before, how do we manage those campaigns? When we talk about these campaigns, it's always 4 stages. It's always a customer segment first. And a customer segment can be anything. It can be a selection from the database, but can also be a score from their behavior. So if we say we want to do a campaign for someone who looks for tools, and then whatever switches over to I don't know, smart home system, that can in theory be a segment. So not only data from our database, but also real-time behavior could be a segment of customers. So if someone falls into a certain score, then it could be a segment. Then it's a story, and that's mostly based on if this then that. So if a customer does this, then he gets that. So that can be, as I said, I listed a few examples. If a customer is coming back and his last shop visit was 90 days ago, so then we want him to come back more often, and we send him the right message. We hope the right message, and other possibilities as well. Then next thing is always a touch point. So it's a segment, a story, and a touch point. So who, what, and where, and in the end, the action that can be an ad, can be an incentive, can be a certain banner, can be a message, can be an email, whatever, can be a service offer. So it's always these 4 steps. Number 1 is defined with the support of corporate intelligence mostly. The touch points are selected based on the attribution. So we're not looking at individual touch points. Whenever we talk about these touch points, we always look how does it fit into the customer journey. When we think email is the right thing, we still look at the attribution, we still look at the customer journey. Is that the right message? And this is, I think, the most difficult part, to put it into a context. And that is not anything we found out that any tool could provide us with to a satisfactory level. I know the sponsors out there will promise different. They might promise that they can do everything. We have not found anyone who can handle this complexity to our advantage. So here my advice would be, don't trust everything you hear. Rely on your own capabilities, because you know your business best, you know your customers best, and put everything into context. What has it delivered so far? As I said, it's kind of a success story. I mean, we're not at the end of the journey yet, but it's still kind of a success story. Looking at, I'm contradicting myself. I talked about attribution, and here we're looking at individual channels. But if you look at individual channels, we had a quite good performance uplift in most of the channels. So in the web shop, for example, 1.5% higher conversion rate, percentage points, not percent, percentage points higher conversion rate. Emails, 4% higher conversion rate, and a 5.6% uplift in contribution margin per customer. Catalogs are performing better again, so that will make it harder for me to abolish them. Email increased with the highest margin, 12% higher open rate, 24% higher conversion rate. So in that case, the segmentation really works, despite the circulation going down 21%. On a customer view, same thing. Main customer KPIs are performing better. It's a turnover, retention rate is performing better. Order frequency has gone up, contribution margin has gone up, and most importantly, the marketing spend per customer has gone down 14%. I'm getting a sign that I'm too slow, as usual. So to sum it up, a short summary and a few recommendations from my side. I mean, it's up to you what you make of it. I can only recommend what we learned during the last year or 1.5 years. The first thing is talk to the customers, and talk to your customers in person. Data. What we could read out of the data was not completely different, but was just not enough, was insufficient. So talk to your customers in person to really understand what their needs are, what they are searching, because they're not searching products, they're searching, in our case, solutions. Second advice would be, do not trust one single tool. It's always a combination, because business is too complex to put it all into one system, and if you want to differentiate yourself, you have to acquire knowledge yourself and not hand it over to one particular tool or service provider. Adjust the organization. Well, I think every textbook tells that the structure has to follow the strategy. So find and form teams that are really dedicated on the task, even though it's hard. I'm not saying that our form of organization is the best. It also has its weaknesses, but it's one way that actually worked, and it is a positive example, I would say. And the last part is the insights and attribution part. As I said, always look at the entire customer journey. It's not one touch point and one touch point as a silo. I know it's a fashionable word, but always look at the entire customer journey. What are customers doing when and where? And try to find yourself how you weigh your options, because that's also something a tool cannot do for you. Am I sending, or how am I emphasizing strategy versus operational? Is it worth to sacrifice a little bit of turnover in order to get my position or my positioning or my brand image right? I think that's my advice. That's how we did it. As I said, up to you what you make of it. If you have any questions, I think I do not have time anymore to answer them now, but I'll be around until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you have questions, if you want to know more about some of these points that I mentioned, I'm happy to discuss it with you and to give you more insight. Thank you very much. Thank you.